My heart pounding, I crouched inside of the closet. I slid the door shut. Fear and adrenaline kept me warm in this cold house. I was safe here in the darkness. For now. The claustrophobic space became a temporary barrier between me and the scarred man, but not a sturdy one. Peering through the door's shutters, I scanned my bedroom. My sweaty hands held onto the knife handle. This weight of utmost dread lingered on like an impending execution. All I could do was hear the scarred man searching my house. And now I had nowhere to run. Nowhere to hide. The scarred man would be here soon. His reckless pursuits of me would take him to this very closet. And then I would have no choice but to fight. Those final paragraphs formed the greatest gift that I ever got. A story written specifically for me by my favorite author, Brad Haskell. Okay, you probably never heard of him. Not many people have. He writes weird horror stories under the Reddit username, Brad21. All of his stories underseen but brilliant. Like discovering hidden treasure, I stumbled upon Brad's tales a week ago. And I was floored, honestly. There was gore, twist endings, exciting action, and so many scares. For once, a writer had satisfied my extreme horror fix. Plus, Brad came along at the right time. I was searching for an adrenaline rush through my mundane reality. At 45, I guess you could say that I was running on the treadmill of a midlife crisis. Charlene Barkley was bored, and my office job was a bland hell. And life in Stanwyck, Georgia was about as thrilling as a wholesome romance novel. Not to mention I was still single. I had my bye best friend Alex for the hot hookup whenever I was really lonely. And yeah, I usually stayed home and read all weekend. But I was attractive. A pretty face yet to be brought down by middle age or the stress of shitty relationships. Long brown hair and piercing brown eyes. Average everywhere except for my personality and my big boobs. I like to drink too. Even by myself on the living room couch. Always in front of my Kindle or the TV. And call it Charlene's natural habitat. But I still loved getting scared. Even grossed out. The macabre was a friend I could always count on. Horror guided me through even the loneliest of nights. Through all the shitty breakups and my low self-esteem. Like a drug, the thrills made me feel alive. Aside from Alex and our drunk hookups, I had nobody. The sex with him was fun, but just a physical distraction. He was pretty and 10 years younger. At work, his green eyes and shaggy brown hair caught my eye. And then the carefree smile got me hooked. The abs and juicy bum were just the perfect bonus. Plus, Alex would sometimes stay and watch movies with me. We were alcoholics in arms. And when he was gone, the only human interaction I had was on the horror forums that I browsed. There, my mysterious friends and I would discuss everything horror. Books, movies, TV shows, Jensen Ackles' body, you know, the fun stuff. I was even in a gore club. Nothing tasteless like death videos, just things like botched surgeries and nasty injuries. I guess it sounds gross, but that type of shit quenched my thirst for revulsion. After all, the scary stories were a fix for my demented imagination. The real-life gore a fix for my morbid curiosity. Above all, though, reading was my passion. I devoured books, and I enjoyed digging through the depths of the internet for the best horror stories around. During my marathon reading weekends, I would indulge like an addict on a bender, always in the living room. Convenient since both the wine in the kitchen and my front door were only a few feet away. Plus, when I got really drunk, I could just pass out on the sofa. Sleep while surrounded by a scary B-level movie on Netflix. Framed posters of slasher classics, and right by my mother's antique bookcase. My library of weird fiction. If I was sober enough, I only had to make a quick walk down the hallway to my cozy bedroom. I found Brad Haskell during one of my nocturnal journeys through Reddit's horror story sub. I first started reading his work around 2 a.m. and I didn't stop until well after daybreak. Not just because his writing was so captivating and immersive, but because his blend of old school atmosphere and deranged Southern Gothic style freaking terrified me. I must have read 7 or 8 of his stories just in that one sitting. Right afterwards though, I posted a comment on one of his stories. A glowing review of what I thought was some damn effective horror writing. I couldn't help but creep on his profile, and I'd be damned if his pics weren't cute too. Only Brad was even younger than Alex. He looked to be in his late 20s. A scrawny Montgomery Clift James Dean typed, armed with a goofy smile. A skinny face complemented by dimples and big bright eyes. His profile said that he was from Georgia, and I could tell from his style. Judging by his strange clothes and unkempt brown hair, I figured Brad was a hipster without a cause. An artist armed with only dreams and raw passion. A true horror devotee. Like me. My phone's piercing vibration distracted me from the romanticized stalking. Within minutes, the Dreamboat writer had sent me a message. Thanks for the read. Holy shit. I had to calm myself. The pressure of talking to somebody who was both cute and wrote excellent stories was getting the best of me, even online. But to my surprise, things went well. Brad and I hit it off like a meet cute in a cheesy romantic comedy. The chat had too much vibrant energy for any awkwardness to disrupt us. After all, we had so much in common. Soon we migrated to Facebook where we talked for a few more hours. Brad told me that he felt isolated in Columbus, Georgia. He didn't have any friends and his entire life revolved around writing. At least the passion showed in his production. Just in the past few months alone, he had written well over 50 stories. And that being said, I was surprised he didn't have more fanfare. And rather than keeping a mystique, Brad wasn't even trying to be obscure. He told me that he wanted fans, and with just 100 followers or so, I could tell that he was getting discouraged. Brad was also broke and unemployed. A laptop in his parents' rural house his only possessions. I told him to never give up on his dreams. He always had a fan in me. I even encouraged him to try self-publishing. Like 2 jaded soldiers, Brad and I traded war stories. All of our alienation and past failed relationships. And of course, we discussed horror too. I even got around to mentioning my fascination with gore and graphic violence. Brad joked that I must have had a fetish for real-life blood and guts. I suppose that I kinda did. But Brad wasn't creeped out by it. And not like most people would. Instead, he joined my private Facebook group. At the end of our chat, I told him to just keep writing. Keep throwing his stories on Reddit. Do it for me, at least, I said. Like a gushing therapist, I just wanted to encourage this talented writer. Maybe his stories were too crazy and scary to ever get published, but with the internet, his audience could only grow. I even joked Brad might get a cult rather than a fan club. Not the most lucrative, he quipped on Messenger, but I'll take it. We said our goodbyes, and deep down, I was comforted knowing that Brad was just a click away. Over the next few days, I messaged Brad on and off. I also dug deeper through his extensive catalog. Damn, he was consistent. Even the mediocre stories gave me chills. Through Facebook, I began conversing with some of Brad's other friends. Beth Madsen, a kooky frizzy-haired woman in her early 60s, and Greg Poole, a nerdy black guy. They were both friendly enough, if a bit weird. I was just happy to have somebody to discuss the stories with. Call us a poor man's Brad Haskell fan club. On Friday evening, Brad sent me a new message. A gift, actually. A fresh new story that he had just posted online. It was titled, "I Was Stalked by the Scarred Man." Behind excited eyes, I read through the 5,000-word masterpiece in less than 30 minutes. Imagine how hard my heart raced when I learned the protagonist's name. Charlene Barclay. Brad had even nailed my description, all the way down to the gore phantom. He described my modest house in vivid detail. Hell, Alex was in it too. Scarred was my life in words, and it was one of Brad's best. In the story, Charlene was a bored office worker like yours truly, only she has a dark obsession with violence and gore. Her long nights spent browsing the gore groups leads to the manifestation of the Scarred Man, a walking conglomeration of all the sickening sights that Charlene savors. The Scarred Man wears a surgical mask and a raggedy gray mechanic's jumpsuit, the sleeves rolled up to reveal long, vicious scars written along his pale flesh. Touches of blood spread across his mask to hint at whatever unsettling wounds lurked beneath. The man's glare of yellow eyes glowed with fire. Tufts of stringy black hair protruded from his burnt scalp. Bulging tumors ran down the man's neck. His long hands adorned by bleeding or ripped hangnails. Brad's story ran the gauntlet from building suspense to delivering outright horror. Once the Scarred Man had started stalking Charlene, fear popped off the page. Her social media began to disappear. Her friends turned up dead. And then the man followed her home. I felt my heart pound along with fiction Charlene when the Scarred Man went into her house, all the way up to when she hid in the closet. Channeling my inner fangirl, I told Brad the truth. I loved Stalked, every word of it. Even through Facebook Messenger, I could sense his joy. Like a proud scientist, he went on to explain the origins of Stalked. It turns out that he had been writing stories for all of his fans the past few weeks. The lead characters were all influenced by one of us. Everything from the characters' personalities to the descriptions. I just wanted to write a story about you, Charlene. Brad told me. Just for you. All my readers deserve it. How'd you write it so fast? I asked. My enthusiastic fingers typed up the messages at a rapid rate. I'm so flattered. You got me perfect. I just went off what you told me, was Brad's quick reply. Well, I'm honored. I'm excited. I sent the story over to Alex. Brad's next message arrived. I owe it to all of y'all. And plus, you've been great. I really appreciate everything. Grinning, I put on my green jacket. Brad's creepy writing had made the house even colder. No problem, I messaged him back. You'll get there soon. You're gonna be so rich and famous. Like a girlfriend ready to show off her new boyfriend, I checked on my fellow Brad Haskell fans. I was curious to see if he had already written stories for Beth and Greg. Not to mention I wanted to show off my own gift. But I couldn't find Beth or Greg anywhere. Not a trace of them existed on Facebook. The two of them had drifted into cyberspace obscurity. Unease sunk into me. Shivering even more than I was during the read, I searched the Facebook realm for my newfound favorite author. Only Brad was now gone. His profile, our messages, everything. Like a great artist retreating from fame. But I knew that wasn't the case. Brad wanted to be a famous author. He wanted to be the next Richard Matheson or Stephen King. A text message shot across my iPhone screen, startling me. It was from Alex. Hey, the story wouldn't load. What the hell? I muttered. Nervous, I went through my phone, and then the Kindle. I couldn't find Brad's stories. All of them were gone from my library. I didn't know whether to be sad or terrified. A quick Google search brought me no answers. Brad hadn't self-published, and all of his stories were wiped clean from Reddit. Not that his stories ever got many comments or upvotes, but still, there wasn't a single mention of Brad 21 online. My soul hit the floor. I wasn't just shivering now, I was shaking. And when I checked Facebook again, I felt even worse. My entire page was gone. My profile, my photos. Whatever online vortex that had swallowed up Brad and his fanbase had gotten me. Like a desperate wife searching for a missing husband, I panicked. I texted Alex and I told him that I was coming over. I needed someone. I couldn't just stay here in isolation any longer, especially without Brad's stories to comfort me. And then I heard footsteps. Long, confident footsteps coming down the hallway, coming from my bedroom. Scared, I whirled around. The footsteps stopped, and I saw no one. I was alone and silent. "Hello?" I asked in a shaky voice. Nothing. Not a single sound. "Is anybody there?" A few tense moments passed before I tore my gaze back to my iPhone. In the lock screen, I saw my reflection. And standing right behind me was a tall man wearing a surgical mask. His harsh glare focused right on me. The scarred man was here in the flesh. I jumped and I turned. The scarred man was gone. But that didn't stop me from leaving my house in a hurry. I didn't even turn off the lights of the TV. I just knew that I had to go. Around 10, I got to Alex's house. He had a modest home in town, bland and cramped. No decorations anywhere in a small yard. Hurrying through the February cold, I rushed up and I knocked on the front door. "Alex!" I yelled. A twig snapped behind me. I whirled around, but I couldn't see shit in the darkness. A little comfort considering I felt someone there. I felt flaming yellow eyes latched onto me. "Alex, come on!" I cried. One glance at my phone further disturbed me. Alex hadn't replied to any of my texts in the last 10 minutes, but all of them were read. "Alex!" Finally, I grabbed the doorknob. The cold touch made me cringe, but I felt relief when I saw that it was unlocked. Uneasy, I stole a glance back at the yard. There was still nothing. No scarred man. I disappeared inside, closing the door behind me. My tenacious footsteps led me straight towards Alex's living room, his campground for watching movies and drinking. I passed all of his erotic artwork and all the other weird comics and shit that he had collected over the years. "Alex!" I yelled again. Through the quiet atmosphere, I entered his spacious living room. I jumped back in horror. No. Lying on the couch was Alex, or what was left of him. His organs dangled out of a split-open chest, his face nothing more than bloodied muscle. Long slices rained down his arms and legs like grisly tire tracks. Blood and stray flesh scattered across the room and coffee table. All over Alex's magazines. All over his framed family photos. The scene reminiscent of either a crude cult sacrifice or a botched surgery from hell. The sight of which would have gotten record praise from my gore club. Standing right behind the couch was the scarred man. The real scarred man. He was just as I had envisioned him from Brad's story. Pure terror. With regal poise, the man stood tall and strong. Vivid scars stood out on his arms like huge veins. His ruffled hair was strewn about in a rock star fashion. His beaming yellow eyes glared at me. The surgical mask now hid what I was sure was a sinister smile. Alex's body lay below him. A corpse the scarred man must have slaughtered in his image. Both of them would make for appealing cosplay or uploads in my group. But here in person, the scene sent me over the edge. Into the sort of extreme fear that I'd been chasing my whole life, but I never actually wanted. I turned and I hauled ass out of the room. My terrified eyes looked back, but the scarred man wasn't chasing me. Not for now, at least. On my way home, I kept checking my rearview mirror, the windshield. Hell, just anywhere for a glimpse of the scarred man. But I didn't see him. Full of unease, I retreated back to my living room. My Facebook was still gone. Brad and his readers are gone. And worst of all, my 911 call went nowhere. Sure, they were gonna send a car over to Alex's house, but I knew that it wouldn't matter. Not when I was being hunted down by the living incarnation of one of Brad Haskell's most disturbing monsters. Standing by the couch, I googled whatever I could on Beth and Greg. All the while I kept trembling in the cold. Like a sick taunt, several news articles stared back at me. Local woman Beth Matson found bludgeoned beyond belief. Metal cane believed to be weapon in Matson murder. I looked up Greg and I got a similar disturbing headline. Greg Poole found with heart carved out, no suspects in Greg Poole slain. The articles and Alex's corpse flashed through my mind in a mortifying montage. God, I said in horror. I staggered back against the wall. I felt sick. Sicker than I had ever been sharing all that extreme gore. This visceral violence was too close for comfort. My iPhone screen cut out, and then my electricity. I stood there in the cold darkness, my rattled instincts on high alert. I knew someone was watching me. Turning, I looked towards the living room window, and behind the glass the scarred man stared back at me. And judging by his statue stance, he had been there for quite a while. Just watching. I couldn't talk, I couldn't scream, I couldn't move. In a slow, dramatic flourish, the man removed the mask. Like a bleeding red carpet, the man's mouth collapsed out, his jaw hanging on by visible threads of flesh, his teeth jagged and sharp. Deep slices surrounded his lips, letting his mouth appear spread out across his face. I stumbled back, horrified. With brute force, the man slammed a hand against the window. The sharp bang pierced into my soul. An inexplicable smile crossed the scarred man's face. A smile more outstretched than I ever thought possible. Panicking, I ran into the kitchen. A quick glance at the window revealed nothing but the dark night. The man was gone. I grabbed a long knife. My sweaty hand held onto it for dear life, especially once I heard a harsh bang hit the front door. Gripping my weapon, I ran down the hallway, straight towards my bedroom. Behind me, I heard the door burst open. I disappeared into my fortress. Like hidden traps, I stumbled into all of the scattered clothes and books. Past my huge bed, all I heard through the staunch darkness was the scarred man's intense search. His hunt for me. My heart pounding, I crouched inside the closet. I slid the door shut. Fear and adrenaline kept me warm in the cold house. I was safe here in the darkness. For now. The claustrophobic space, a temporary barrier between me and the scarred man. But not a sturdy one. Peering through the door's shutters, I scanned my bedroom. My sweaty hand held onto the knife handle. This weight of utmost dread lingered on like an impending execution. All I could do was hear the scarred man searching my house. And now I had nowhere to run. Nowhere to hide. The scarred man would be here soon. His reckless pursuit of me would take him to this very closet. And then I would have no choice but to fight.